Hey, Queens. How are we? No lectures today. Yes, same. Hence, me on here. Okay, we're gonna set a. One second. Let me double check. Okay, if y'all could send likes, get it moving and grooving, that'd be great. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna send 2 hour timer. Hey, thank you for the gift. 2 hour timer. Okay. Okay. When that goes off, I'm gonna have to go. 80 people. Let's get moving and grooving. Yeah. Thank you so much to everyone being on here. I might go live again tonight because I'm not going out tonight because I'm just quite tired. But everyone, no, not a new mic. Um, just I'm on main. Thank you so much for people sending gifts. Thank you so much for people sending likes. Guest request should be on now. Okay, so you can send a guest request if you really like. Hey, Queen. No. Oh, why? What the? What in the world? Anyway, that's private family drama. Hilarious. Anyway, okay. Um, if you disagree with me, send a guest request. Okay, then send a guest request. Hey. Oh, good, good, good. Hey,
Hi,
Queen.
good morning.
Good morning. Well, it's afternoon for me, but yeah. So what do you say? Israel's our ally, so we should be supporting them?
Yeah,
Intriguing. Don't you think people have to earn allyship?
well, I believe they already have. We've had a long-standing treaty with them for many years, if not decades.
Why does that justify in continuing it?
I mean, I feel like that's a false question. Like, the better question would be, why wouldn't it? Like, it's in writing. Like, what more do you
Does
need?
putting something in writing make it good or true?
It makes it contractual, which is a legally formed document.
So, okay, fascinating. Um, First of all, neither the US or Israel follow international law pretty consistently. Do you want to say that we are legally required to support Israel? If that's true, we're not legally required to support Israel's criminal acts, like the criminal acts that they are taking currently. So if your argument's on legality, I'm happy to get into international law with you, but I don't think that's going to benefit the Israeli side.
I don't see anything illegal they're doing.
Well, just because you're not looking, love. What do you call the bombing of, residential areas, right? The mass displacement, calling on other areas to allow for ethnic cleansing, saying there are no innocents in Gaza. That looks a lot like genocide and ethnic cleansing, which
What do
last
I
time I
call it?
checked was illegal.
What do I call it? I call that a great thing because they attack people at a music festival. They
Who's
should get
they?
every bit of. I'm sorry, who's not watching the news, honey? You don't know about the
But
music
who? But
festival being
I'm asking
attacked on
you:
October
do
7th?
do the women and children who live in northern Gaza, are those the they you're talking about?
Yeah, the ones that
Why
elected
does
their
the
leaders.
actions of some Palestinians reflect on the
The one,
actions of all of them, including the majority of whom are children?
yeah, so the ones that elected their leadership did it to themselves and their
Most of the people
families.
that live in Gaza did not elect those leaders. The vast
Okay, that's
majority.
weird, right? Like maybe they should have an election then, instead of just like blindly supporting a known terrorist group.
Do you know who's preventing them from having an election?
The terrorist group.
Yeah. So you're blaming the civilians for being oppressed by a terrorist group and then blaming the
But are
civilians
they really
for their
oppressed? Because
oppression?
they cheer for them. They cheer for their group. They cheer for their
They still
leadership.
think that they should have an election. Like, what are you talking about?
I'm saying when you see these
You're
people
saying,
on
oh, maybe they
TV,
should have an election. Yeah, they agree they should have an election, bro. They're
I
under the
know.
rule of a
Well,
terrorist organization. Are you kidding me?
it seems like they want to keep supporting them though. Like
Then
they
then
see,
have an election. Like then they can vote for it, right?
I'm just saying if they,
The only reason the age group would not want an election is if they think they'll lose support. Right?
so
Your argument is entirely
I'm just saying,
contradictory.
I'm saying if Palestine had an election today, they would continue to vote for their age group. They would continue to put them
What do
in
you mean
office.
continue? The vast majority of Palestinians weren't even alive and in Gaza at that time when they elected it. You realize that, right? There's
It's
no
not a,
continuity here. The majority of Palestinians in Gaza were not Gazan citizens, much less alive or of voting age during 2006, the last election. There's no continuity.
my view is that regardless of who's there now, that the choice would be the same. That they say, you know, they want a ceasefire and all this, but if given the opportunity, they wouldn't change anything. They like being led by that
Okay, then
age
let
group.
them have an election, but until then, you can't blame the civilians for the actions of their like terrorist
If I
leaders,
definitely
right?
can,
Like you
a
just
hundred
can't.
percent, I can
Why?
though.
Why? They don't have control over who is leading them.
So, you know, in this country, in America, we once were controlled by England, and technically we didn't have control of anything either. But
And
then
we were
we
not to
had a
blame for the
revolution.
actions of the British Empire. Yes, correct.
Well,
It would be
well, we had
absurd
a
to look at America
revolution.
at the time and look at the horrendous things that happened against them. Yeah, but once
We,
again, it doesn't make
we,
us responsible for the actions of the British Empire, right? Like
but we
us being
took this,
oppressed, it doesn't make us responsible for the actions of the oppressor.
but we took the steps to separate ourselves from that leadership, and that's what matters. So, if we would not have done that, then maybe we would be just as culpable.
Okay. Do you think that the Israeli population is responsible for the IDF's actions?
Yes, it's a volunteer army. It's
Okay.
a
Okay. And you deny then that the IDF is committing war crimes, even though they flagrantly obviously are.
right. I 100%
How do
deny
you
that.
deny that? How do you justify the bombing of residential areas?
Well, as I said earlier, they kidnapped and tortured people, right?
Okay,
Like,
did the children kidnap and torture people?
so in war, there's this thing called collateral damage,
Okay,
and that's what
did the 1.1 million children that have been displaced due to this kidnap people?
in war, there's this thing
I'd
called
love an answer
collateral
to the
damage.
question. I'd like an answer to the
I
question
mean, if
first.
you're asking me if a child kidnapped adults, the answer is no.
Okay, so when you say they kidnapped people, that is incorrect because we're also bombing the children.
So if you want to make this conflated analogy and like pull
That's
off
not an
pure,
analogy, nor is it conflation.
it's pretty conflated. But
Explain
let's
to me
just
the analog. What's the analogy?
maybe analogy was the wrong word, but conflated definitely wasn't.
What's being conflated? What two things are being
You're
conflated?
saying you're assuming that when I say they, that I'm talking about every person in Palestine. Obviously,
I asked you
children.
about the bombing of residential areas. Children live in residential areas as well. When you refer to they, yeah, I'm going to assume that you're referring to the they that I'm talking about. You know who
So
I'm talking
so
about.
now you're
Answering any other way
assuming.
would be disingenuous.
Let's get back on track, shall we? I
Wait, back on
support
track away from you, like
I
walking over your
support the
words.
bombing. I support the bombing because this is war. They brought this on themselves, and
Who
everything that
brought this
happened.
on themselves? The
The
terrorist
people of
overlords?
Gaza. The
The
people of
people of
Gaza.
Gaza?
Yeah, that's right. Every last one of them,
Majority of whom
man.
are children brought it on themselves.
Absolutely,
So these children brought it on themselves.
that's right. Because the children, their actions are the responsibility of their parents, and their parents brought
But
it on
is
them.
it the children's responsibility?
It's 100% the children's responsibility. Children
You
make
blame
the
the
change in the
children. You
world.
think children
I
deserve
blame
to
them.
be
I blame
bombed
them, dog.
because
I blame
you
them.
think
I blame
children
them.
deserve to be bombed
I
because
do.
adults acted poorly.
I do 100%.
Okay, so if
100%.
your parents did something, evil, you would be blamed for it?
I mean, this isn't about me, bro.
But
This
I'm
is about,
asking you directly.
and I'm declining to answer your question. I want to talk
Okay,
about
because
Gaza.
it's obviously stupid. Obviously, I'm not responsible for someone that's not me. You kidding me?
I mean, it's not my call to make, right?
No, you've made this call when they're brown people. You've made this call when they're Palestinians. You made this call when it's not you, when it's another ethnic group, when it's outside of your view, right?
I'm
But
speaking specifically
when
about
it's you,
Gaza.
yeah, then we care. It's
I'm speaking
obvious. You have a
specifically
complete
about
double
Gaza.
standard for Palestinians and everyone else.
It's not a
Totally
double
different
standard.
standard. You
It's
blame,
not a double
you
standard.
find any excuse, to dehumanize and
It's not.
attack
It's
Palestinians,
not. I don't have to
including
look
children,
hard.
right? But you don't, but when I ask you about yourself, right, or anyone else in your social group or anyone in the society, right,
Because you're sitting here
it's
making
disgusting.
arguments like, "Oh, you're blaming the children. You're blaming the children." Like,
Well,
how am I
I
supposed to
asked you, are
take you
you blaming the
seriously?
children? And you said yes
I said yes because I was just trying to show you how ridiculous you are.
by agreeing to the statement.
Yes, but I agree to your stupid question. Like, obviously, children aren't responsible for their parents' actions.
Okay,
What
then
kind of
stop
idiot?
saying they are.
Quit asking me it. Like, why would you even
Wait,
ask
well,
that?
you
You're
can
making a
you
dumb.
realize
You're
you have
conflating.
freedom to say
You're
you have freedom to
conflating
say
an
no.
argument. You're making this about what children would decide instead of what the adults actually did. And by
Yeah, but
doing
the
that,
thing
that
is
is the
the adults aren't the
conflation.
only ones dying.
Oh my God. Children are the responsibility of their parents, sir.
But children are not responsible for the actions of their parents, and that's what's being
Agreed.
confused.
Agreed. Children
Okay,
aren't
so engage with
responsible.
me. The thing is this is not funny, right?
Who's
And what
joking,
you're
dude?
doing is like I'm showing you how ridiculous. No, you're not. I'm
You're
asking you a
you're
very
trying to
serious
you're trying to
question.
make.
Do you
Oh my.
think children deserve to die?
I
And you
do.
said
I do.
yes.
I thousand
I
percent
have
do.
you. I have you. You believe children deserve to die.
For what their parents did? Yes. This is called war. It's called
Do you
it's called.
deserve? If your parents did something horrible, do you deserve to die?
If my country did something
If
horrible,
your parents did something horrible, do you deserve to die?
again, I'm not going to answer your question because not we're not talking about me. We're talking about the people of Palestine, and we're
What's the
specifically.
difference? What's the difference?
The difference is the leaders of Palestine attacked our
Why do the
military
leaders matter
ally.
regarding responsibility? This is a principled
Why would the
argument.
leaders matter? Are you serious?
In
You
relation to this argument, you're saying children are responsible for the actions of their parents. I'm asking you if you hold
so
this principle. Do you only hold this principle for Palestinians?
I hold the principle for anyone that attacks our allies, sir.
So you don't hold the principle for the allies?
I hold the principle for anyone that attacks our allies.
But you don't hold it for our allies.
I don't understand your question.
You don't hold Do you hold that principle for our allies? If our allies do something horrible, do their children deserve to die?
They might, but if someone tries,
I'd like
it's
a
not going to
direct
work
answer.
out
Why
well
does it
for them.
matter that they're aligned with the USA, whether their children deserve life?
I mean, it just matters because we built the world. We're number one, right? I mean, we're not some
And that
podunk country.
determines children's human rights?
I mean, it does. It shouldn't,
Really?
but it does. you know.
But to you what you say should happen or shouldn't happen, or what should be blamed, or what you accept, or what you think is acceptable, you determine whether a children deserves to live or die
I
based on
don't,
whether they were born into an ally of the USA or not.
sir. I don't construct a utopia, right? I'm talking about what
But we're talking in
society needs.
shoulds, right? And then we can talk in practicalities, implementations
Let's
of
talk
those
about it
shoulds,
in
right? But
reality.
you are
Let's.
a horrible person if you believe that a child deserves to die because of their parents' actions.
I
It is
guess I'm
one of the
horrible.
most foundational like horrendous things to engage in
Oh,
collective
too
punishment.
bad. Oh, I'm a war veteran, sir. right? Like things happen in war.
It's not that's not
War is what happens when diplomacy fails. Okay, when talk is over, war is what happens to make people understand. You don't like it?
I
Don't
don't
start
think you being
fights.
a war veteran is gonna push further for us to trust that you're rational,
I don't need you
um,
to trust,
or
buddy. Trust
sane.
in what you see on the news.
Um,
Right?
how old are you?
41.
You're 41.
I am.
Okay, so you know how to have a conversation, yeah?
I mean, I've been doing it my whole life.
So you know how to like.
I mean, I want to talk about the actual age group, and you want to
But
talk
the thing
about
is
children.
you're 41 and you clearly
So you
at
want to
least think.
attack me instead of talking
I'm
about
not.
the
I'm
issue,
not.
right?
You're not
This is
acting.
this is
You're not acting like a mature person,
this
and
is
I need you to
fallacious.
act. So in order to have a conversation, right? I need you to be able to act like a mature adult, right? I just turned 20, slay, and I like to think that I can have a pretty good conversation. I would like you to have a pretty good conversation and be serious about a very serious issue. Do we think we can do that?
So you just gonna turn off my microphone because you can't handle the
Yeah,
truth?
I will. I will. I'd love to know if you're able to have a mature conversation. Okay, we can let them speak for a bit. Oh, he left. Or she left. I don't know their pronouns. They left. Devastating. Okay, send a guest request if you disagree with. Anyway, how is everyone today? How is everyone today? Hey, Queens. A little dumber for listening to you, lol. Okay, let's read the news. Israel news. You know, what are we doing? We're sending in American boots on the ground, aren't we? Joe Biden demands Israel increase the amount of aid entering Gaza as aid agencies say children are now dying of malnutrition. Meanwhile, the U.S. command central carries out strikes against Houthi sites in Yemen. Oh, we've spoken to this guy before. Hello, we've
Hey,
spoken,
what's
yeah?
up?
Hello?
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay. Several people dead after being hit by airdropped aid. My God. Oh my God. At least
Yeah,
three people start. Hello?
how are you?
Doing well. Have we spoken before? We've spoken before, yeah?
No, we haven't.
Oh, okay. What did you send a guest request to disagree about?
I actually just wanted to hear your views on what's going on currently, and maybe I will disagree.
Um, in general terms, I call for an immediate ceasefire, decrease and dis decrease in Israeli aggression against the Palestinians, and end to the occupation immediately. Such things.
What are you talking about when you refer to the occupation?
So I'd refer to at the very least, the occupation of lands, post the 1967 borders. That would be what's internationally recognized as the occupation. But the entire, state of Israel as it stands as a Zionist state is occupying in some way, but that's not the most condemnable part of it. So I'd say the occupation post 1967, plenty of other critiques are problems with the Zionist state as it stands, even with the 1967 borders.
Yeah, so the West Bank in Gaza is not enough for you. When you talk about occupation, refer to the Israel as a wall.
Sorry, say that again.
The occupation in West Bank and Gaza is not enough for you. When you talk about occupation, you refer to Israel as a wall,
As what?
as a whole, like all of Israel.
Kind of. It's an occupying in a sense, but as I said verbatim, when I'm referring to the occupation, I'm referring to the occupation of the fall of the post 1967 borders, right? So
Yeah,
the failure
I
to
will need to
oblige with the
know. I
1967
need to
borders.
know like what exactly to address, because these are two different claims.
I was
One is
very, very
real.
clear. I said when I refer to the occupation, I'm referring to the failure to follow the 1967 borders.
Hmm. So, do you know what's the argument I'm probably likely to use regarding how I'm going to like semi-justify the occupation in the West Bank?
What, that it's a security threat to Israel?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's your response to that?
I don't think America has a right to occupy, Iran because it's a security threat. And also, the security threat has only increased following the Israeli occupation. The reason we see violent acts from the Palestinians to the Israelis is because of Israeli aggression and occupation by and large, right? like anti-American sentiment massively increased following the war on terror. Terrorist, threats and aggression against America and American troops abroad increased vastly following the war on terror. Occupation and oppression and apartheid only increase aggravation and aggression amongst the oppressed peoples. The best way to solve this security threat to Israel is for them to stop being, oppressors.
Yeah, but that's what they tried to do in
When?
2005. And if wait, in 2005, and if your argument will be correct,
Did they pull out of the West
then
Bank in 2005?
no, but they did pull out of Gaza.
Okay.
And like if so, I got the phone call. So if we are operating under your standard, that if we reduce hostility, then it follows that there's going to be less aggression. Then Gaza should have been much more peaceful after Israel has left it.
Well, while they continue to occupy the rest of the Palestinian areas, right? Severely restricted trade, even directly following 2006, still denied them their land, right? So the fact that I stole a shit ton of your land, right, and then gave you back a portion of it with extremely limited sovereignty over the land, and quite a lot of economic control over what goes in and out of that area, that is still oppression that would breed violence quite strongly.
Yeah, but it's much less oppression than what it was before, right?
Kind of. I mean, it depends what you mean. Immediately following 2012, it's surely worse than it was pre 2006, right?
Yeah, but
So
but but,
if
but
you want to argue, that there was some spike immediately following 2006, fine. I'd argue that this really ignores the thrust of the argument. Of course, when you pull out of when you're trying to build new institutions, right? Those institutions are going to take a second to acclimate. But what we're talking about is long-term reform. So, for example, immediately following the revolution in America, we saw an uptick in civil violence. Immediately following the revolution in Ireland, we saw an uptick in violence. But as those revolutionary institutions became more concrete, we saw that violence drastically decrease, right? So if you want to say, oh, within the 6 years, these institutions didn't crystallize enough to have that safety and moderating effect, yeah, I'll agree. But that's perfectly, expected. You can't really refute the thesis that oppression breeds, violence. Like, do you actually disagree with
no,
that?
no, but I tell you what I do think. I think that leaving Gaza was a stepping stone towards giving the Palestinians their own self-determination, right? Like if I was Palestinian in Gaza in 2005 and I would see Israel leaving Gaza, even though there are still certain elements of oppression, I would still say, okay, it's a step towards our self-determination. And what these people have done, they have, like, quote unquote elected age group, right? An age group was at this time a T group organization with a charter that states a predictions to kill all the Jewish
Yeah.
people. Yeah, so,
So
so what it
so the thing is once
so
again, you're
how
missing historical analysis
wait,
here.
wait 1 second. How do you see Israel doing such drastic moves towards self-determination, and you are doing the worst thing you could have done, which is electing, like, the worst organization you could possibly have?
Right, because they tried, a notably better organization. I don't care if you really like them or don't like them. The PLO is objectively better than the H group in most conceivable ways, except perhaps efficiency. Um, and I don't love either of them, but the PLO is obviously better, obviously more moderate, obviously more secular, right? Um, so I agree they were probably they were very dumb for supporting an age group, but that's exactly what we would expect, right? Once again, immediately following any form of like freedom or establishing new institutions or pull out of institutions, we see a swing towards extremism and then a moderating force after it, right? And also, like, to characterize the 2006 pullout of Gaza as a step towards sovereignty for the Palestinian people isn't entirely true, right? It was following the Oslo Accords, and the reason that Israel did it was not because they wanted to give sovereignty to the Palestinian people. It was because they didn't want to ever be threatened with administering the Gazan people, right? They didn't want to ever have to deal with that many Arabs in their
Yeah,
in
but
their
this
land. It was an
entails
ethno-demographic
self-determination,
threat.
right?
Um, yeah, So they did it for really fucking racist reasons. But let's look at any other piece of history, right? So if we look at South Africa, the British, by and large, pulled out of South Africa quite strongly. But as the British pulled out of South Africa, right, the resistance groups actually got stronger, right? And then they peaked when they were free, and then they fell, right? So this is same thing with India, same thing with Algeria. Like I don't know how many times I have to go down. It's following the
So
exact
are you
same
agreeing
pattern.
that
It's exactly the pattern you would expect, right? And if you had like a moculum of historical analysis, you would see that okay, when they start moving towards any type of self-determination, the UN was part of the Gaza pullout, right? Trying to make a new institution. Those new institutions start out quite extreme and then moderate very, very naturally. This is exactly what happened in South Africa, right? The South African government that came in, according to international, recognition, was quite extremist, right? They were labeled terrorists as well, and then they moderated out. Not to say South Africa is doing too well right now, but it's clearly doing better than it was under, apartheid South Africa. So this is exactly what you'd expect.
Well, I
Israel
will
just
not be
needs to
able to
continue.
respond. I will not be able to respond if you go on a monologue, man. Like, right? So,
I
so,
spoke for the
so
same amount of time as you.
okay, maybe. Anyway, but you see that I did try to respond, but you didn't let me. Anyway, so what I do think, I actually do think it's a stepping stone towards self-determination, despite you saying, okay, the justification to why Israel has done it is racist. I do not think, because you said that why Israel has done it is going to be because they did not want to administer these people, right, following the Oslo course, which makes sense, which is actually entails a stepping stone towards your own self-determination, right? And what I do think, like generally, I'm not being like two-faced here. I'm telling you that if the people in Gaza would actually adhere to liberal values, right, liberal and would not choose such a radical organization to govern you, right, and they would actually adhere to peace and they will get education under this path, they will get more and more perks until they finally get their self-determination. Because when we talk about self-determination, we talk about a process. We do not talk about something that happens instantly, like instantly, right? This requires a process that takes time. So first Israel leaves Gaza, then after a while Israel is going to remove maybe borders or whatever. Then eventually they are going to get their own self-determination and trading ships and whatever you have been referring to.
Can you point me to a time in history this type of process has worked that you're describing?
No, because
Like give me give
when
me
I
me
look at,
your model. Give me your model for giving self-determination. Like I pointed to South
listen, wait,
Africa,
I'm not a
Algeria,
history,
India, the
I'm not a
US.
history guy,
Like
right?
yeah, but that's obvious because what you're describing is it has never happened in
No,
history.
but I will
It's
tell
not
you
how
what I
it's
am,
not how
right?
freedom works. It's not how independence works. It's not how any of these things work, right?
No,
It's
wait,
just not what
let me
happens. When the
respond. One
oppressor
second.
consistently does it, they will consist and Israel doesn't want to do what you're saying, right? The far right extremist terrorist organization, the terrorist government within Israel currently, right, explicitly say the Oslo Accords are dead, the two-state solution is dead. They want a greater Israel that includes the Sinai, parts of Lebanon, parts of Syria, right, and parts of Egypt and the Sinai, and parts of Jordan. They explicitly say this. Netanyahu has a map.
Yeah,
Like what you're saying is a
but the
complete
current
delusion. There is a
government,
terrorist organization in charge of God, in charge of Israel right now, and I think you should take them on the face as that. But the thing is I've provided historical examples of when and what I'm suggesting has worked. Right? You give self-determination, you tolerate the extremism, and then it moderates itself out. That is what happens, right?
do you know what
You
paradox
have
of
you have
tolerance is?
absolute you have just
Well,
complete
can you respond to my
complete
whatever I'm
guesses.
telling you? You are not engaging, man.
Yeah, it's
Do you know what
delusional. That's my
paradox?
response. It's a
No,
delusion. It's not
do
going
you
to happen, and
know,
no one wants it. Israel doesn't want that to happen.
dude, do you know what paradox of tolerance is?
What?
Do you know what paradox of tolerance is?
Yeah, no. I mean, I know what you're talking about. This is nonsense.
Okay, so you
I
saying,
use tolerance and I use no, 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 no.
Will,
You
one
don't. It
second.
doesn't apply.
Let me
I
make
mean,
a
I didn't
statement.
use tolerance in that sense, bro. But anyway, tell me about the idea that
You
doesn't
said
apply to
that
the word here.
Israel needs to be tolerant of intolerance for it to remain tolerance. But this is the actual
No,
opposite
that wasn't
of
the argument
what.
that I made. Wrong, wrong, not the argument I made.
Listen, okay. What I
Do you want
think,
to continue that? Do you want to try again? Like that's not the thing
yeah,
that I
this is
said.
what I'm trying to do, right? But you are not letting me engage with the conversation. Listen, I think it's very simple. I think it's you who try to, you, like, you try to like purposely not understand the argument, which is something that I find is bad faith, right? Because I'm giving you a
What have
logical
I
argument. I'm not.
misunderstood?
Wait, Will. I'm giving you a logical argument. I'm not giving you a historical one.
I
I'm
don't care
telling you
about this
how.
meta shit. Tell
Where,
me what I've
I'm
misunderstood.
giving you a logical process in which the Palestinians would reasonably get their own self-determination, and
Yeah, and
your
I'm
only
telling you when it
response
happened, I responded directly as
and
to
your
why.
only response is that it never happened historically, in the history,
No,
which
that
it
wasn't my
doesn't make any
wrong.
sense. It
That's
doesn't
incorrect.
matter.
That's a lie. That is not true. That's not what I said.
Okay,
That
so
wasn't
what
my
did
only
you say?
response. I gave two primary critiques of your argument.
Okay.
One, that it's ahistorical and historically inept, right? Which you agreed. You're not a history person, right? So there's a fundamental problem in that it just isn't what happens. Like based on all existing data, that's not what happened. But secondarily, right? I said it's not what Israel wants, right? There's you're just saying, well, it was a stepping stone because then Israel would give them more and more and more and more. Bullshit, right? The current government in Israel has said as much as they don't want that, right? So like, why? Like you're just saying, okay, this is a path that could exist. Sure, it's a path that could exist, not that ever will, ever naturally will occur, right? Ever could occur under the current power structures, or has any reason to occur under the current power structures. You're confusing logic with like just a very basic quality of your argument, which is that you're right. One follows from another, but it's totally divorced from reality.
Okay, but when I talked about Israel leaving Gaza, I was not referring to the same government and the same principles. Like when we talk about Bibi, we talk about a parasite who is going to change his views according to which side is stronger, right? If his own population is going to want a two-state solution, so will Bibi. And like we have seen it like 2 weeks ago, where Bibi was talking to
And so were
Biden about.
Palestinian leaders.
We have been talking. We have seen 2 weeks about 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, where Bibi have been talking to Biden, and he said he has no problem with the Palestinian state. And then he went to Israel, and you see all these
Fucking
people
liar,
going
yeah.
against it, and then he's going, okay, no, actually, we will never have this. But for you to say it's not going to happen under the current government, I don't think it's entirely true, because under the correct sanction and under current condition, I completely see Bibi adhering to a two-state solution, and he even said it like a couple of times in 2012. And if we look about Israel as a whole, we see that Israel has been offering a couple of times a self-determination for the Palestinian people.
The
Like
Palestinians
Yonah.
have also offered a two-state solution multiple times, and Israel has denied it. So I don't know really what to say. And also, you're pretending like you give Israelis right a lot of leeway. You're like, well, the government will change. The government will change their views in relation to what the people want. Yeah, that's obviously true. But you completely ignore that Palestinians also have that leeway, right? The PLO's in power for a series of political and social reasons that are related, right, to political support. The H group is also in power, right? Not entirely because of political support, but international support, right? They're helpful to Iran, etc. We could go into a big analysis of this, but Israel's also like all of these forces apply to Israel and Palestinians quite similarly, right, in quite strong ways. So when we look at this,
No,
yeah, I think they will
I
be
will not
cuffed.
say so. I
You don't
will
think?
say
Wait,
so
you don't
because
think foreign and domestic pressures affect the politics of Palestine?
it's going to affect Israel much more than it does to Gaza, because Gaza is
Totally. Wait, no, it obviously affects
I will
Gaza more.
explain why. I'll explain why. Because Gaza is dictated by age group, which is not a
Okay, who
democracy.
dictates
It's
what the
not.
H group
It's
does?
not an entity which adhere to democratic values. In Israel, you are going to have
Yeah,
election every two
Israel doesn't
years.
adhere to democratic values either. But who dictates what the H group does?
What democratic values Israel does not adhere to?
Uh, the the recognition of all its deserving citizens to the right to vote.
Okay, Well, all the citizens in Israel are allowed to
Not all
vote.
the deserving citizens. 750,000 Nakba refugees are consistently being denied their right to vote via their denial of
But
citizenship
they do not have
merely on the basis of their
citizenship.
ethnicity. That is a hallmark of an apartheid state.
They do not have citizenship in Israel.
Exactly. They have deserving citizenship, though. That was my statement. So,
No, but it's a slippery slope because when we talk about
what do you mean a slippery slope?
democratic
What do you
values,
explain
we
to
are
me how
going
it's a
to talk
slippery
about
slope?
we are talking about the citizens in Israel. If they are not recognized citizens, then
No.
obviously they are not. Yeah.
Qatar is not democratic precisely because of how it doesn't give a shit ton of people citizenship, right? Them excluding people from citizenship, especially those that have the deserving right to it, right? That, like those refugees that have the right of return, right? Is counter-democratic, obviously. If America excluded black people from having citizenship, right, that would obviously be counter-democratic. And Israel excluding Palestinians from having citizenship is absolutely counter-democratic.
Why do you
Obviously.
think the Nakba? Why do you think the Nakba, the people who were evicted in Nakba, deserve citizenship?
I mean, under international law, they're deserving of citizenship. So,
So what does international law states?
well, so the international law categorizes them as refugees of armed conflict. Refugees of armed conflict have the right to return to their homeland following the end of that armed conflict. The armed conflict has ended, right? The 1948 war has ended. The 1967 war has ended, and therefore the people and their descendants, their direct descendants, have the right to return to their homeland immediately following it. Obviously.
So what do you think is going to happen if Israel is going to do that?
Totally irrelevant to the point of international law,
Yeah,
right?
okay,
It doesn't.
but I'm
I
asking.
still have to pay my taxes, so I'm going to starve if I pay my taxes. You understand that, right? Like the law is the law, and then you can say, well, I can ignore. Israel doesn't just get to ignore the law. It's no argument to the law
Wait,
of
1 second, I'm
international
getting a
law
phone
that
call.
Israel would be annoyed or be harmed or whatever they say. Right? I also disagree that it would make Israel less safe. That's neither here nor there, right? But I don't care. Do you disagree that that's the law, or are you just saying Israel deserves to be able to ignore the law?
Yeah, sorry, my bad. I got a phone call. Can you like very quickly repeat what you said?
It, do you disagree that that's a law, or are you arguing that Israel gets to ignore the law?
Yeah, no, I think we should, as like a state, adhere to like to laws, right? Especially like international laws. But when there is a justification to not do it, then we should not adhere to these laws.
And
And if you want us to,
does that make it not the law,
well,
or does that just say Israel could be outside of the law? Because I don't think
no,
like
I'm not sure it means that Israel should be outside the law. But what I'm saying that if the law is going to make Israel a much more dangerous place, or completely revoke Israel's identity of a Jewish nation, then obviously Israel should not adhere to this international law.
so you think Israel has the right to maintain its status as an ethno state in violation of international law, and you believe that it is necessary in order to maintain its status as an ethno state to violate
Yeah,
international law.
because
So
I mean, if
you're
you
saying Israel constitutionally must continue to be a criminal nation.
no, I'm telling you that if Israel is going to get all these people into Israel, right, then it's obviously not going to be Jewish state anymore because unless it's not going to adhere to democratic principles, right? Because if you get all these people into Israel, which have the right to vote, Israel is going to be inherently changed,
So
and
what
then
you're okay?
I'm
Why do you
just
think
going back to
Israel's
the
okay? And
paradox
this
of
goes into you think
tolerance
it is a
is
valid
because
no Eden no Eden. You think it is good enough justification to violate international law to maintain a Jewish state? Um, Okay, fascinating. Do you think that when someone, signs a contract or, signs onto laws, they should generally follow them? Like, I don't see how Israel didn't see this
yeah,
coming.
they
They
should
joined the
generally
UN. They
follow
followed.
them.
They followed. They joined the UN. voluntarily, they signed the Geneva Conventions voluntarily, right? If they felt they had the rights to be an ethno-state and that was good enough to completely ignore whatever they signed, they shouldn't have signed it, right? So this argument completely to the side, but we can move on. You think it's a good enough policy reason to ignore the law, which is idiotic in and of itself, but the policy reason you're suggesting is so that they can maintain a Jewish majority? What fucking idiocy. Why do you think they have the right to maintain a Jewish majority?
Because Israel is established as a Jewish state,
Why does that
like,
justify them
well,
maintaining being a
I'm
Jewish
telling you
state?
why it's justifying, and you are not actually letting me respond to your question beyond like this ad-hom
Stop
attacks.
bitching. Just answer the question.
Yeah, okay, I will. So the reason Israel is justified in ethno-state is because whenever the Jewish people, which are like a very, very minority in the world, have been under any actual authority, what happened is that Jewish people were persecuted, they were hated, they were killed, they were ashamed of being Jewish, they changed their own ethnicity, and then there is the Holocaust. Obviously, the Jewish people are in need of their own state, which provides sanctuary for our own people, right?
Okay, and your argument now is that the oppression of Jewish people, justifies them being an ethno-state, which justifies them oppressing the Palestinian people by denying their right to
No,
return.
this is a logical leap. So like you
No,
say that my
is
Will,
committing a
you are
crime. Sorry, no,
saying
no,
that my
it's a
arguments are
logical leap.
idiotic.
Is committing a crime against someone oppressing them? Yes, it is. You're saying Israel gets to commit a crime because they are an ethno-state, and not committing this crime would stop them from being an ethno-state,
No,
right?
but you
And then
can
you're
find them
saying
as
them being an ethno-state is
wait.
founding on
Let me
Roman oppression. So you are
let me
saying the
respond
exact
because
thing that you are trying to prevent, you must necessarily continue to allow for the continuation of your solution. You're
no,
saying the
because
oppression of the
what you
Jewish people
can do,
justifies the oppression of the
wait,
Palestinian
Will,
people.
what you can do instead is instead of making them go back to Israel, they can go back to the West Bank, and you can provide them with housing, and you can provide them with economic status, which is going to help them. So it's actually an alternative solution to what's been going on, in which case Israel is going to remain an ethno-state, and the people who are basically the victims of a Nakba can return to this land, just a different house, which maybe even a bigger one.
So you don't think native people have the right to return to their actual own land?
But Jewish people are also native.
Yeah, both of them have the right to live in that land.
Yeah, but what happens when there is a cultural clash and you don't get along with each other? You split the land.
I no, I don't believe
Yes.
that.
Why not?
Okay, example of this when it happened well. Let's talk
Okay,
about it
I
historically.
give
You
you
said,
the
when is there a
simplest.
cultural clash and we split it? Go.
I'll give you the simplest explanation. When I was in school and I didn't get along with someone who was sitting next to me, what we did is we draw a line in the middle of the table in which I have this part and you have this part, and that's
Example
all.
of a country doing this.
No, I am not a history guy. Maybe I could find if I search in chat
You
GPT
should be.
or
If you're going to
something.
speak on this issue, you should know shit about anything, right?
Come
History
on,
is
I'm
fundamental.
telling
You don't know
you.
anything. You don't. You
Wait, one
like
second.
genuinely. If you're going to say, okay, I'm going to propose the solution, but I have no clue if this solution has ever worked. I have no clue how people would respond to it. I have no clue what would happen, right? Well, what information are you arguing from? What do you know? Right?
I'm telling you.
What is your background? Where
Will,
are you arguing
I'm
from?
explaining you a logical explanation, and the only way you are going to refute it is saying when it happened in history. Just because it has
Yeah,
never
because I
happened
can give you
does
10
not mean.
examples where it failed.
Wait. Just because it never happened in history does not mean it cannot happen. When you
No, but
do not
Eden, it's
get
a
along
good
with
argument to
someone,
say this has been tried and it failed here, and here. Right? That is a good argument. Not just to say no one's ever tried it, so we don't know, right? No, the argument is to say you've tried it and it doesn't work. We know that humans don't respond to it this way. If you disagree with me,
yeah, sorry, can you repeat what you said?
it is obviously a good argument to say, look, it hasn't worked here, and here, right? We tried it, it failed. We tried it, it failed. We tried it, it failed. You would agree that that's a good form of argument, yes?
No, because I do not have to adhere to history to say, okay, this is a good argument because it makes sense, because it's
But I'm asking
logical.
you if the form of argument I just said was a good form of argument. It didn't work here, here, and here. That is obviously
No,
relevant.
because
Yes.
no other history like event is going to be reducible to the same properties of what's going on currently in Gaza and Israel. Like it's never going to be the same
You don't think
exactly.
arguing from historical events is a
Not
good form of
necessarily because
argument?
when you reduce these events to properties, like to single properties, you're not going to have the same properties. It's never going to be exactly the same thing. Like if you could make an argument, okay, this what happened in like 1942 was exactly the same as what happening currently in Gaza, then we would say okay, and if it worked in the past, it's going to work again. But what the problem is in your argument that you are making is that it's not the same reducible properties. It's never going to be exactly the same. Like even there is one single property that's different, then it could change the entire picture. This is why
Okay,
I'm arguing from a
Eden,
point of logic.
Eden, we make that is the form of argument I have just made is the form of every single argument. We only know
No,
things.
no,
Will
there
it
are
is
deductive arguments.
deductive? Okay, let's go. Where do you get the deductive principles?
A priori knowledge is not based on
A
experience.
priori knowledge. It's a priori.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
humans would react to a large social system is a priori knowledge.
I mean, if I could make deductive arguments based on a priori knowledge, why?
Not
Because
in
when I'm
relation to this, though.
yes,
Okay,
because
wait, how do you
I'm
know how
adhering to
people will
logic.
respond to a certain
Vic, I'm adhering
state
to logic. I'm
apparatus?
not adhering to experience.
First of all, adhering to logic is adhering to experience. But second of all, logic itself can't make arguments, or arguments are entirely divorced from reality. Like
No, no,
you could
adhering to
make an
logic is
arbitrary
not. Is,
argument, but it would be like talking about Blemshiel and Palestine, right? Like they totally divorced from reality. We could have an interesting political theory debate about that. Still wouldn't be a priori knowledge, right? Still wouldn't be divorced from experience, right? But that's a little different of an argument. Every single claim you would make is derivative of past experience, right? How do you know how people will respond to something?
no, I can take past experience, right? But I can still take logic, and I can still
So
factor it
past experience is relevant to an argument.
yeah, it's going to be relevant, like to like a very minimal part of the argument, but eventually it's going to all collapse to logic, like a simple logic bubble.
Logic
Because
itself, this is, oh my God, this is actually,
I tell you what,
this
Will,
is physically painful for someone that
why
actually knows how to argue.
why do you think? I ask you like the most simple question I can. Why do you think a split is not going to happen? It's not going to work. Why?
Oh no, I'm fine with a two-state solution in the interim.
Are you fucking kidding me? So when I told you, well, when you don't get along with each other, you split the land, and you told me no, it makes no sense when it happened in history, and then now you are telling me that you agree with it.
In the interim,
1 second, I'm getting a phone call.
as I said, I agree with it in the interim. Will's on the payroll of the Pally Brigade. Please get me on that payroll. That'd be great. Once again, I believe in a two-state solution in the interim. In the same way I agreed with a
Only,
two-state solution in the interim for Ireland,
are you
right?
willing to wait like 2 minutes, or it's too much for you?
Uh, what do you need? Like, what do you need to do?
I need to make a phone call.
And we'll see if someone else disagrees, and then I'll let you back up.
Okay.
If you disagree with me, send a guest request, loves. Otherwise, it's going to get really boring. As I've said, I agree with a two-state solution in the interim. I feel like some pro-pallies don't know what interim means. Are we understanding what I'm saying? But anyway, yeah, I agreed with a two-state solution in Germany for the interim. I agreed with a two-state solution in the interim for. No, Palestine doesn't disagree with me. I believe in a transition period. You Egypts. Oh my goodness. I believe in a one-state solution eventually. I believe in a two-state solution in the interim as a transition period. Oh my goodness.
Hey,
Anyway, hello. What did you send a guest request to disagree about?
yeah, just said that pro-Pallies don't disagree with you about the two-state solution. And I think you're kind of wrong about that. I think most of them, uh, would say that they just want one state from the river to the sea
Well, I said
instead of
Palestinians don't
Israel.
disagree with me, but that's fine.
No, I'm telling you.
Pro-Pallies are a totally different class of people. I said pro-Pallies were not understanding the words I'm saying, which is true.
Oh, I see, I see. But well,
But
Palestinians,
also, I think the vast majority of Palestinians would support a transitionary period between the current understanding and a one-state solution. I mean, it's been proposed to them; they've accepted it before.
do you know? Do you know? Do you know what a pay for slay is?
Bro, like, I may be a gay man, but like that pivot hurt even my neck. Like, like,
No, no, no.
what are we doing, bro?
You have a dirty
What's
mind.
going
No,
on?
no.
Come on, bro. Like,
Listen,
can we
listen.
have one conversation? What like, I'm. Oh my
Pay,
God, I'm so in. How old are you?
bro. No, no, no. You're not
No, how
getting.
old are you? How old are you?
I'm old enough. I'm
How
in my
old are you?
30s.
You're in
I'm
your
in my
30s.
30s.
Okay. So like you know that like okay, I'm really just
Yeah.
inclined to like move on to the next person because like
Why?
there's no there you clearly don't want a conversation if that's how you open, right?
No, no,
If
no,
you're
no,
like
no. I
if
do.
you're like
I
if
do.
you're like let me start on this and then when I respond with an argument,
Wait,
just
wait.
like whoopah, let's
When
go
you're
on
not
to
letting
this
me.
completely random
No, no. I
talking
didn't go
point.
on a rant. I just said. I just asked a
No, completely. I
just
didn't
one
say a
short
rant. I
question.
didn't say a rant. I said a
Oh.
completely random talking point.
Oh no, no.
Okay.
It's not
I
random
don't give
because
a shit. I don't. I like the thing is the
no, but
policies of the Palestinians and the policies of the Palestinians. I'm not a huge fan of the
dude.
Palestinian policies. Like, what is the thing is why I don't like
Okay.
isolated questions with isolated talking points is like
Mm-hmm.
we're not. There's no argument being made. There's no point being
No, but
made. Do you have a
it's a
point
lead
that you wanted to
question.
prove?
Yeah, yeah. It's a
Okay,
lead
yeah. Start
question.
with
I didn't
that.
know. I didn't know. I thought it was a back and forth, like just a conversation. I didn't realize. I didn't want. I wasn't trying to put you in the spot. My point is that you need people don't realize out there in the West that there's an issue with the way people are being educated in the West Bank and Gaza.
I think people fucking realize it. I think
They
people don't.
do? Then I'm glad.
Because
I'm glad
Israel's
that.
the loudest people in the world about it. Oh my God. You cannot go
But
two
it's
inches in the
true.
UN without Israel screaming about it. Yeah, but like
But
that's
it's
it. Once
true.
again, if that's your point, you're just wrong. Like the West, like
No,
isolatedly somehow have
but
this fixation on
dude,
children's
it's
books
not.
in
It's not.
Gaza. You
Uh,
can't read when you're starving. Like cool. Yeah,
no, 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 dude.
wonderful.
No, nobody was starving in Gaza before October 7th. Actually, have you seen
It
footage of Gaza before that? They had hotels
depends
and a
what it depends what
KFC.
index you use and what you mean by starvation. No one was dying of starvation in Gaza, but people were severely
Right.
malnourished,
But
and
do
it
you
was one of the
know?
most food insecure areas in the world by population density.
But do you know
So
do you know that they use child labor to build tunnels? Do you know that this is like some of this is like self-inflicted? You can't just blame Israel for people not feeding
bro,
their children.
come
What
on.
do you mean? That's true. These are all
You're not
true
making an
things.
argument. You're just saying shit.
No, I am making an argument. I'm just
Okay,
telling
what's
you
the
that the
argument?
conditions. No, no.
What's the thesis? Like,
My argument is that you cannot blame Israel for everything that's happening in Gaza. You need to
cool, I
put
agree.
some responsibility on the leaders because they did have a government, which is the H group.
Fine. Some responsibility. Totally irrelevant to the point being made.
No, I know the point. Okay,
So this is
okay.
why you start
Circle
with the
back to the
thesis.
point.
Say something I disagree with.
So my point is okay. My point is the two-state solution is hard to get to when a lot of the people in these areas in West Bank and Gaza are radicalized to the point that they don't want to coexist. You do have coexistence within Israel, right? You
Cool.
do
I
know that
agree. Say
there's
something I disagree with.
okay. Well, I mean, we agree on everything. I don't know what you're gonna.
This is
Okay,
why, like,
okay.
just yelling talking points at someone,
No,
right?
I'm not
To
just
make a
yelling,
vague kind of like to make a vague
bro.
kind of like valuative like pushing one side. You're just like It looks like your actual
No,
thesis is just Israel good, Palestine bad, or like
no,
Palestinian
no,
children bad, I guess. I don't know.
no.
But
I
it's
did
just like
not say
totally
that.
useless.
You're putting words in my mouth, honestly.
No, I didn't. I didn't.
I just,
I said it
I,
seems like your actual thesis is. I
I
never
just
said you said
made,
that.
I just
Calm
made
it
some
down.
points. I just made some points
To nothing. To no, you
no, no,
said you
no. The
repeated
point
talking
is
points.
that no, no, no. The point is that we don't have a partner to make peace with. We want somebody that is reasonable to come up, a leader or a group or a political party to come up on the Palestinian side that we can talk to. It does not exist. You cannot talk to Fatah. You cannot talk to H group, right?
Is it your
So
view
we
that the Palestinians have a partner in peace when Netanyahu has explicitly said that the two-state solution is dead and he wants an extended
well,
Israel?
he said it after October 7th. I mean, that's the response to what happened. How can you need to realize that some of the people that participated were people that had work permits to come into Israel, and for years they would collect
I didn't feel
information on
like that was an
people.
answer to my question.
What do you mean? You're saying about what you're asking me about what Netanyahu said about there's not going to be any two-state solution. It's never going to happen, right?
Yeah, what
So
was my
what I'm
actual
telling you,
question?
yeah. So wait, say that again. Okay, ask your question again.
Did you not hear it?
Repeat it.
I'm asking you if you believe that the Palestinians have a genuine partner in peace for a two-state solution when Netanyahu,
Yes.
right, as well as the government as a whole within Israel currently,
Yeah.
has stated that the two-state solution is dead, the Oslo Accords
hmm
are dead, and they want an
hmm
extended, expansive Israel, a greater Israel. Do you believe that those people are partners in peace for a two-state solution?
And my response to that is prior to October 7th, yes. After October 7th, no. And
Okay,
a lot of
then
and
the
listen, a lot of people that were on the left moved right because of what happened.
Okay, cool. So if and I also think the PLO is a reactionary group, and I also think Hamas is a reactionary group. There's lots of reactions going on here. And I think the
hmm
fact that you're saying them being reactionary, yeah, it delegitimizes their own beliefs, because reactionary beliefs are worse.
I
Cool. So
mean, it's out of fear.
there are two extremist
Wait,
nations,
but
right?
bro, do you want? Let me ask you a
That have been
question.
radicalized against each other. No. Um,
Okay, go ahead.
and somehow you're very, very focused on the Palestinians being not a partner in peace, when Israel also
Hmm?
has not been a partner in peace. They haven't followed the Oslo Accords,
No, we
and now they've gone
offered.
even.
There were several petition plans that we accepted, that Israel
And
accepted.
there were
I don't
several
understand.
partition plans that the Palestinians accepted.
Which one? Name me one.
So Camp David Accords, Yasser Arafat offered one that was direct, that did not ask anything of Israel beyond exactly what international law required of them.
What year?
So, when would the Camp David Accords? Camp David
It was like
Accords,
92,
1993. Yeah.
92, 93. Okay, I mean, I guess maybe I can give you that. Maybe Yasser Arafat maybe could have, but you realize, I mean,
Famously,
there's
Yasser
so many.
Arafat did this. It's a really quite famous thing. So
Yeah, but he also did other things that
yeah,
kind of like.
Netanyahu said a lot of other shit as well. But anyway,
Sure, dude, I'm not a Netanyahu like fanboy, okay? This is not like I'm not
no,
trying
but
to
I'm not a
justify
Hamas
whatever.
fanboy, and I'm not a PLO fanboy.
Sure, I didn't call
But
you one. I
when you're
think
trying to justify and describe the current political state
no,
between
no, no.
Israel and Palestine, right, and then
Uh,
you're like, oh, Israel's offered so many peace plans, and then you completely ignore
yeah,
that Palestine has offered peace plans, right?
dude.
Well, both of them have offered peace plans, right, and both of them
Um,
have denied peace plans. The
no, no,
ones,
no.
and this is why I come down more on the Palestinian side with this, is the peace plans that they have offered, that the PLO has offered and still offer, right, with Israel,
Mhm.
is merely a recognition of international law and a following of international law, and the offers that Israel have made maintain them as a criminal nation, right? By a plain text reading of the international law. So one is willing to engage in negotiations to merely enforce international law. One of them wants to maintain occupation and oppression, right? You
Really?
can
So you're saying
justify
the
it, you can go about it.
Palestinians,
That's fine.
your stance is that the Palestinians were always trying to just like solve the situation and just get
No,
peace.
no,
Okay, so
I
but
didn't.
that's
No,
that's how
not
you
by any means.
portrayed
What I
it.
said is the current standing offer from the PLO is one that is merely in line with international law, right? And Israel's kind of standing offer is not that.
Okay, well, I mean, again, in order for you to make peace, with a neighboring nation or an aspiring nation, you have to make sure you're not going to get any security threats coming from that part. You understand?
And how will
So, like you said,
Palestine ensure that Israel doesn't security threat them? Because they've been threatening the Palestinian security for the past 70 years. This doesn't seem to be a consideration on the
dude,
Palestinian side.
seriously, do you know
Seriously,
do,
seriously.
do you know
More
what happened?
Palestinians by an order of magnitude have died.
Do you
Why are we
know?
only talking about security threats from the Palestinian side?
Because I'll tell you why. Because the reason there's checkpoints in the West Bank is because in the late 90s there were a wave of unalive bombings on buses and nightclubs in Tel Aviv and other places.
Should
And so
Palestinians be
for
able to
you,
put checkpoints in Israel?
we don't blow ourselves up in the middle of every,
Yeah, because you blow
you know,
Palestinians up.
not true.
Should Palestinians have
What do you
control over
mean?
Israel's military?
We blow Palestinians up. Where does that happen?
I
Where?
mean, you've bombed the West Bank multiple times, and you're currently bombing the shit out
Where?
of Gaza.
Bombed it? No, we don't bomb the West Bank. What are you talking
You
about?
have bombed the West Bank, but second of all,
With
right?
planes?
What? Yes.
No way, bro.
Within the past 20 years, you have. But yes, you have. But second of
No,
all, you
no,
clearly have
it's
bombed.
not
You
true.
clearly
I
have bombed
served
the
in the
Gaza
IDF
Strip.
in the past 20 years, and I don't remember bombing the West Bank at all.
But
At
also,
all.
are you denying that they bombed Gaza? Are you shitting me?
No, I'm not denying that. That's war. They
Okay.
waged war on
So I
us.
said you bombed the shit out of. Yeah.
Yeah, but they
Um,
waged war on us. What do you expect us to do? To like, oh, yeah, do you want us to give baklawas like they do after they murder people?
okay. So, I mean, immediately in BBC, West Bank strike, Israel accused of targeting civilians in deadly attack, right?
With an airplane,
Israel
with rockets, with an
with an
airplane.
airstrike, yeah.
In the West
So
Bank, like
seven
when?
men, four of them brothers, were killed in an Israeli airstrike early on the 7th of January as they sat around the fire next to the road in Al-Shawad, I don't know,
All right.
close to the city of Jenin. Where's Jenin? Womp womp.
Hasbara, look at your chat, bro. Do you realize? Do you think? Don't you?
Are you about to get
Do,
triggered by
do,
my chat? Yeah,
no,
that's
no,
in the
no,
West
no.
Bank. So
I
they
don't
do
get.
airstrikes in the West Bank. I don't know how you have served the IDF and don't know
Not.
that. Definitely a choice to
Okay.
defend the terrorist nation of Israel and not know their terrorist
Wow, the
action.
terrorist nation of Israel. Now that's what we got to. So, like, let me ask you a question.
You
What
can
is
bitch and moan
the
about it, but like, I
what
don't
is
know what
the
that's getting you.
what is the Islamic Jihad? Is that like a
A
group of
terrorist
Norwegian
organization.
atheists? Oh, okay, good. Okay, fine, fine.
Once
At
again,
least you can admit that.
the thing is like your little grumbling. I can hear. It physically pains me because I can hear the little grumbling, in your voice.
Grumbling.
It's like know my
What?
position and debate my position. You're just grumbling about positions you think I have, and you think that like Palestinians doing bad things somehow excuses Israel doing bad things, right?
No,
You think
I'm
that I
not.
have this super
I'm not
extremist
saying that.
view. Obviously, I think
Dude,
Palestinians have done bad things. If
anybody
your
who's doing
argument just
something bad
yeah,
is a bad person, okay? I'm
yeah,
not, it
cool.
doesn't
So
matter if he's Israeli or
if
Palestinian.
your argument is just kind of vibes, is like, oh, Palestinians do bad things. Yeah, cool. I
No,
agree.
that's
Like,
not what I said at all, bro. You're
okay, but
misrepresenting
like
what I'm
in
saying.
conclusion to this, like, can you give me like a normative statement that I should agree to or not as like
Okay,
a position?
okay. Well, let's see.
This shouldn't be this difficult. If you're making an argument, it should be towards a normative statement. This is why I require you to come in with a thesis.
No, okay. I just thought it was just a conversation. I'm just feeling like just you
It's a
put me on the spot
conversation
real
with
quick.
a. It's also not a conversation with just you talking about. But anyway, yeah.
It's a
I need to know
debate. What do you
what you
want it to
want
be?
me to believe. It's not a debate if you don't have a debates are surrounding a normative statement.
No, I don't have. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I assumed you hold certain positions that you probably don't. But this is, this is this is, what happens when, you spend a lot of time on this app and you hear certain people use certain narratives, and then you just believe that they probably believe that other talking point as well, probably. But yeah, I recognize that, you don't hold the type of extremist positions. Furthermore, I don't, again, I don't support what Netanyahu specifically. But I also don't think that Israel, as you portray them as a terrorist state, I don't think that's the case. Israel is Israel makes mistakes, like any other country. Obviously, it's not a perfect country. Um,
Terrorist, a person who uses unlawful violence and intimidation to get, especially against civilians, in pursuit of
mhm.
political aims. So, yeah, I mean, Israel's violence against the Palestinians and the Lebanese in southern Lebanon.
The
Um,
Lebanese in southern Lebanon, dude. Do you know that the army of South Lebanon in the first Lebanon war? Do you know that they fought with us so that they could deter the extremist Islamists? And they did not. Do you know that Lebanon does not hold their part of the deal of not crossing the Litani River in Lebanon?
let's
And they
use the
set
words
up
that are
shop
actually
there.
accurate. The Hezbollah
What do
does
you
not
mean?
follow their part of the deal.
Sorry, what
It's
did I
not
say? Yeah,
Lebanon.
sorry,
Well, you said
sorry.
it's
Yeah,
not Lebanon, right?
right, right,
The
right.
Lebanese government is a different
Hezbollah. Sorry, yeah,
entity.
it's yeah.
Hezbollah, no shit, the
I,
terrorist organization doesn't follow their treaties. Surprise, surprise.
okay,
But the
but we
use
have
of
no
violence.
issue. We have no qualms with like Lebanese people.
I
Like,
didn't
there's not
claim
like,
you
oh,
did. What I said is there was the violence against Lebanese people, right? Especially against the international reporters, right? So there was an investigation into the deaths of reporters under Israeli airstrikes, and they found that they were unlawful
mhm.
and targeted. That is, and there's no reason to kill reporters other than for political aims. I mean, I think it's pretty
I
clear.
don't know if they,
So
dude, seriously, they targeted a reporter specifically because it's a reporter. That's what you're
yeah,
saying.
I mean that was yeah.
I don't believe
That
that.
was the conclusion of the investigation, but that's fine. So
I
I
mean,
would consider
sure.
that a person who used unlawful violence and intimidation against a civilian in pursuit of political aims, that's a terrorist organization.
Okay. I need specific. Listen, Israel is a democratic state, and if someone
Doesn't prevent them from
uses
being
their
terrorists.
no, no, listen, if a soldier does something out of pocket and attacks someone and does someone he shouldn't do, they are put to trial. It happened many times, but
What do
there's
you
no
mean?
trial for people in Gaza if they hurt a Jew, right?
And there's no trial for West Bank settlers if they hurt Palestinians, by and
That's
large.
not true. That's not true. That's not
Yeah,
true.
this
No,
is
they
even
go to
the
court. They go to
even the
court.
U.S. has condemned this, bro. Like
Dude,
how you
that's
so
not
delusional to say
true.
even okay, then what is
They
fucking
put to
brain dead
trial. Dude, I
Biden
grew up in
talking at this point?
Israel.
I
I
don't
know
care, right?
exactly what happens. I've seen.
That makes you less trustworthy regarding
Oh, really?
Israel's
Because what,
policy.
Zionists and Jews lie? I mean, that's like
No,
a very
because
anti-Semitic
Israel's one of the
position.
no, it has nothing. First of all, I don't
So
conflate
why don't you
Israelis
believe? Why
with
why does it discredit me
why
because I
for
grew up in Israel?
the same reason that I don't trust people who grew up in Nazi Germany about the Nazis'
Bro,
policies because they have
Ofer Kasif grew up. Dude, Israel is
because
not
they have the
Nazi Germany.
policy.
First of all,
No,
first of
no.
all.
Let me explain my point, bro.
Okay, go ahead.
Because when you live in the propagandist state, they control the information that is coming in. I don't trust North Koreans with what North Korea's policy
But
is because
bro,
they're
I had
clearly
access
being
to
told
internet.
propaganda,
But you're
right?
not correct about this. Growing up, I had access to the internet. Nobody monitored anything what that I do. I could have like, dude. There's plenty of leftists in Israel, right? They moved. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot moved right because of security reasons. But people hold a leftist liberal
I
position in
don't doubt
Israel.
that, but my point
They
is, I'm still
exist.
saying wait, this is the point holds. When you are part of the propagandized state, you live in the propagandized state, you're less trustworthy on the propaganda that's
But
being told.
bro, how can you compare it to
Same reason
North
that right,
Korea?
like, I don't have an objective view of Christianity because I grew up in the Bible Belt where a lot of things were told to me, up until what? Up until like, what, this is embarrassing for me, but up until like 6 months ago, I actually thought that Jews came out of Egypt, right? Like that was my
But
education,
they did,
right?
bro.
No, I mean they in reality didn't, right? The anthropological evidence shows they didn't, right? But
Well,
because I
let
was
me
raised
tell
in the
you.
Bible Belt and I was taught like Christianity as true, right? Yeah, I'm probably less
But
trustworthy on certain
bro,
things regarding Christianity and the beliefs. Absolutely.
I have to tell you this, okay? I'm part Egyptian. My mom is Egyptian, okay? And we have a long history of being in Egypt. Now, does that correlate to like someone from like 7,000 years ago that lived there? I don't know, okay? But definitely
I'm talking about
Jews,
like the story of Exodus being untrue.
yeah, that Moses, came,
Yeah, the story of Exodus is incorrect.
well, who knows what's right, true or not true in the Bible? I mean, I'm not.
Anthropologists.
I'm an atheist. Like it. Well, I would call myself more agnostic. I used to be a militant atheist back in the day, but I was listening a lot to Richard
Oh,
Dawkins and stuff like
oh
that.
my goodness, that makes so much sense. I was actually going to say that your tone regarding arguments sounds exactly like a fucking like angry atheist.
Yeah, you
It's
think
so
yes.
it sounds exactly like an angry atheist. Oh my
Yeah,
God. I was
well,
literally
that
going to say that. Like the grumbling is exactly what I hear from angry little atheists that
because
they're horrible. But anyway.
I would watch like atheists debating like a Christian, like a prominent atheist
Oh,
debating a prominent religious person, like Sam Harris or somebody debating some Christian or something. But yeah,
yeah,
uh,
that's it. Counter apologetics. That's my background as well. I'm an agnostic atheist. I fucking um I do not like those angry atheists. It just really annoys me. I understand it, but it really
sure.
you that's what that style of debate I'm hearing is. Oh, gorgeous. Anyway,
I guess,
um
yeah, I guess that's where I learned it. Yeah,
okay, there are other
but
people in the guest
yeah,
room
go
listening.
ahead.
So
Cool. It was a
I'll
good
go ahead and move on to
conversation. I
the
enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.
peace out. Keep on sending likes, share, like, slay, whatever. Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Not much. What did you say the guest was disagree about?
Well, I disagree with a lot of the things that you say, but maybe we'll start with one. Let's start with what's behind your head, US funding.
Yeah.
Um, where to start? Do you really suggest that that is an idealistic and realistic solution to this problem, or
Those are contrary claims. I believe it is a true normative statement.
okay? And apart from being just a statement, do you actually believe that this is a solution? Or is it,
I believe we have a moral imperative to do this in the most pragmatic way possible. Yes.
and what way would that be?
Depends who we're talking about, right? So most pragmatic way for me to get this normative statement accomplished is very different than the pragmatic way for like Biden to get this accomplished, pragmatic way for Netanyahu to get this accomplished. Um, that's what practicality is. Practicality is a personal relationship to the normative statement. If we're pretending I'm emperor of the US, right, we can talk. But
So that basically makes it just a clickbait statement at that point.
I mean that by that argument, every debate ever would be a clickbait statement, right?
Well, you're not suggesting anything really. You're just putting up something to grab people's attention. It's not like you haven't actually
No, I'm
told.
suggesting that everyone do whatever is pragmatically possible for them to achieve this end.
Okay, so
Like if
let's.
I said all of us should go, if I had up here, all of us should go get an apple and eat it, right? I would be hopefully affecting the amount of apple eating in this world. Equivalently, right? Protesting could lead this about. If you are a policymaker or a person with influence over the policy, or if you have, a platform or whatever, like if you have a dollar to affect how money goes to Palestine or goes to Israel, yeah. So I mean, the series of ways you can implement this, interesting, but this is a debate regarding the normative statement as to whether or not we should actually work towards that goal. And that's really, really like stupidly obvious, right? Surely you understand that.
You know what? Like specifically the funding. I wanna understand exactly. You're calling for boycotting because that's what it seems like you are calling for, basically.
How does that seem like what I'm calling for?
Because you're not suggesting sanctions on Israel. You're not suggesting any of
I'm
that, are you?
suggesting sanctions on Israel, yeah.
And you believe that that would be effective?
Along with certain diplomatic statements and fundamental changes to American foreign policy, yeah. It's obviously
Okay.
not the first move. The first move is that we stop actively supporting and loving everything they do, right? Like,
Okay. Well, I mean, you don't have to support and love everything that they do, but what I'm trying to get at here is, are you suggesting sanctions and military sanctions, or are you suggesting that we should stop funding in every way possible, including corporations stopping? How would you do that exactly? I don't understand. Because you really don't have a
are
leg
you
to
asking
get that completed.
in what capacity? In my personal capacity as a college student or in like
No, no,
any
no,
capacity?
because
What's your
because
argument?
my argument is that this is not a viable option. There's no way for you to complete it.
For me personally to complete it, I would agree.
For
or
for
for anyone ever, for it ever to be completed?
collectively as a group that supports Palestine, it would not be an accomplishment. Like it just wouldn't work.
Why? Okay, what was, because we did it to Cuba. Okay, so we can make social pariahs. So clearly, America acting as a whole can do this. We have choice over who we fund. So your argument can't be that it's impractical as a nation to do. Are you saying pro-Palestinian protesters don't have enough political influence to cause this to happen? In which case, I would say, well, I'm working towards some degree of success regarding it, um, obviously, right? And then I would also work towards more people supporting it and funding it. Like, you're not saying, like, you're either saying it's infeasible for America ever to do it, to which I'd say you're wrong, and that's obvious, or you're saying it's I don't practically have enough information or power to do it, to which I'd say yeah, obviously, no shit, no one's claiming I do, or you're saying the current political pro-Palestine lobby or work don't have enough power to do it, to which I'd say, well, we do to some gradient, right? And that's the goal, is to affect it in any and all ways.
Okay, well, I'm not going to comment on the Cuba thing because you and I both know that that was a completely different situation with a completely different country.
If you want to
But
ignore my claims, that's your choice. But
I'm not ignoring your claims. What I'm trying to
you are.
tell.
You said I'm not going to comment on it, proceeds to comment on it, but is unwilling to actually make an
Okay,
argument
fine.
regarding
Okay,
it.
if you really want me to comment on it, Cuba was
I don't want you to
threatened.
comment argue it. I want you to attempt to actually respond to it. Lol.
Okay, well, my response to that is that it is an absurd statement to say that we could do it just because we did it to Cuba. Um, and you know why. You know exactly why.
Argue it. Why? Argue it.
Well, because Cuba at the time was being pumped with missiles that were like miles away from the United States. They were a communist nation who was aligned with the Soviet Union. Is that not why they were sanctioned?
Yeah. So we had good political reason to we had good political pressure and reason to sanction Cuba.
Yeah, but you also had JFK, who was completely different from what's going on today in the United
But once
States.
again, you're talking on like really oscillating scales of practicality, right? So you're saying with the current president, this isn't going to happen. To which I'd say, yeah, probably. But you have to cool, like it's a useless comment. Obviously, using political pressure to affect any aim to this, like any level of this aim, is better than not, right? Are you just saying what I'm doing is entirely useless?
It is because Israel's relationship with the United States is not that of Cuba's with the United States.
I
Israel
agree.
Israel is an ally of the United States, and for that reason, whatever you're saying with let's sanction Israel, it's just not going to happen. It's not something
I
that two
agree. It's probably
partners.
not going to happen.
Okay, so that makes what's above your head a statement that is just for clickbaits. It's
No, it doesn't. So if during the Vietnam War, if I went out and protested, right, trying to push for the end of the Vietnam War, and I said the Vietnam War should end right now, right? Do you think that what all of those protesters for the Vietnam War, even though obviously it wasn't going to happen, it wasn't going to end right now, it wasn't going to end immediately, do you think what they were doing was useless and just for attention and show?
well, in a way, the protests during the Vietnam War were not useless. I wouldn't say that they were useless because you have the right to protest, and I'm not taking that away from anybody. But it is well known that the hippies at the time and the people that were out and about protesting, some of it was for show.
Are you saying that all protests are useless?
I'm not saying that all protests are useless, but if you want to boycott a brand in your way of protesting, so be it. But I don't think you should be calling for defunding of two partnering nations because
But your argument is on the grounds that it won't happen, right?
no,
And you
just
could
one
apply
part.
that critique to any protest, right? You could apply that critique to the Vietnam War protest, for example. Where it's like, well, it's not going to happen. Obviously, the protests against the Vietnam War were actually relatively effective eventually, right? The end of the Vietnam War was largely in due to political pressures from the people because it was so deeply unpopular and it was so obviously unpopular. So political pressure matters, and what I am attempting to do, along with a series of other things, is to apply political pressure so that our government has to do at least something, so that they aren't like just the most hawkish government in the world. So I don't know. if what I'm doing is useless, then what you're doing is useless, because you're just saying I disagree. Cool. Who cares if no one cares what I'm saying? Um, so why is what you're doing not useless if what I am doing is useless?
That brings me to the next point, and my next point would have been basically that if as soon as you, let's say hypothetically, you succeed in somehow defunding the IDF in Israel, you know, what you're suggesting is a bigger bigger tensions in an area that's already full of tension. You're not actually going to um, increase the levels of peace there. In fact, you're going to basically promote an environment where all the groups around Israel are now going to have the upper hand because they're funded, regardless of what you say. They're going to be funded and pumped full of money by Iran and Russia and Syria, right? So,
And is Syria pumping money into them?
oh, Syria is indirectly sending money through Russia. That is Russia's gateway to Hezbollah, and that's Russia's
Do you
gateway.
mean Russia's giving money through Syria, or
And Syria is pumping weapons into that area. Yeah, of course. They're
Syria's
strong.
giving money?
Syria, Assad is complicit with all of what's going on, and so are the groups on the ground in Syria, which is just north off of Israel.
I'm aware. Okay, who funds, for example, the Jordanian military?
The Jordanian military, I don't know. You tell me who funds the Jordanian military.
Okay, who funds the Qatari military?
Would that be the United States? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, who funds the Saudi military?
And are these military, well, apart from the Saudis, of course, are the Jordanians and Qataris, are they actively engaged in war or are they threatened in any way?
Yeah. Obviously, right?
Who?
But your argument was not that, right?
Who
Your
would be
argument was that there would
threatening
be
Jordan?
increased tensions. Your argument was that there were increased tensions, which is interesting. Of all, quote unquote, between all of the surrounding nations of Israel. That's fascinating. So Jordan, which is America's cuck, let's all be real. Lebanon, which is a failed state. Um, Syria, also a failed state. And Egypt, also aligned with America currently. So, you know,
So
yeah,
what I
cool.
suggested is that
Iran would
instead of
gain more power in the area, but currently Israel is an aggravator nation. So I disagree, number one, with just the argument that you made. Oh, they're going to, it's going to increase tensions because they're going to have the upper hand. No, they won't. Um, but second of all, Israel has been using its upper hand to agitate the Arab nations for the past, 70 years, right? They've been actively agitating. They've been actively pushing against them. When Netanyahu calls for, a one state mega Israel, right? That's agitating to the uh, Arab nations. So if we took Israel's huge ass ego out of it and said, no, 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 we're not going to give you a blank check to make any claims against people that we're trying to, make friends with. You're going to have to actually negotiate in good faith. You're going to have to give up the one state claim. You're going to have to stop just forcing anything you want upon the Palestinians. Yeah, they're going to stop being oppressive because they just can't afford it. This is how the British Empire fell. They just couldn't afford the oppression anymore. And I mean, that's the quickest way to end it.
And I take it you're not a supporter, of course, of Hezbollah and H group. I've heard you say that multiple times, but what do you think their position would be as soon as they notice that there's a defunding of the IDF in Israel? Do you think that they're just gonna, stop fighting and say, well, maybe hopefully this will be a solution? In fact, like I think the opposite's gonna happen. I think that they're gonna double down on their attacks on Israel. You're gonna see more rockets flying into Israel. And, like should you be successful with defunding the IDF, I would suggest that the Iron Dome would be weakened at that point and the production of those missiles would go down. And that's a system
And do
that's
you
not
do you believe that let's say this is what I'm suggesting is we use diplomatic power, diplomatic threats against Israel to force them into good faith negotiations with the Palestinians. Do you think that Palestinian aggression to Israel will increase or decrease following a good faith negotiation?
that's a hard question to answer, to be honest with you.
It's not that hard, babe. It's really not that hard at all. It's like stupidly obvious,
You're
right?
suggesting that
You
what
stop you
makes you
stop
think that it
oppressing
would
people, they
decrease?
become less violent.
You think that
Good
the
Friday agreement,
ideology
babe.
that they have is going to decrease the amount of violence that's going on?
It's obvious. A good faith. Yeah. So like this is when I pull up history. You know the history of Northern Ireland and Ireland.
Sure, of course I do. How is that a comparison of what's going on there?
because people said the exact same thing about the IRA. They're extremists. They're sectarian extremists who will never stop. The Irish support the IRA because they're extremists, and all they'll do is they'll attack English and England and the English people and Protestants in Northern Ireland if we enter in good faith negotiations. Totally not what happened, right? How many bombs have gone from the Republic of Ireland to Northern Ireland? None, right? The terrorism against Catholics and against Protestants in Northern Ireland has decreased by an order of magnitude,
And are
right?
they
When we
ideologically the same as the H group and Hezbollah? Are
the
they?
IRA was pretty damn bad. It was a sectarian terrorist group, right, in the 1930s. So I don't know. You can draw like minute differences between them, but the thrust of the point stands, which is that when you stop oppressing people, when you engage in good faith negotiations with those peoples, those terrorist groups stop being aggressive by and large because they stop having popular support. Also, like, yeah, there's so many ways we can argue, but it's really like you can even go in a foreign area, right? So it's in Saudi Arabia's best interest that both Israel and Palestine calm down, right? Because they want to get F-15s from America. There are huge reasons, like, so Saudi isn't going to continue funding them. The Arab world is split, right? And if you want to say, well, we need to keep funding Israel because they're going to be a proxy in the Saudi-Iran, fight. No, you can stabilize the nations so it looks like Jordan, who is still a proxy within the Saudi-Iran fight, but a shit ton less Jordanians die.
Right. I don't see the connection between what's above your head and defunding the IDF in Israel and you bringing these two groups to the table for negotiations. That there's no
Because Israel not having a blank check to oppress Palestinians and maintain violence from the US is the first step in them actually giving a shit about coming to the table. Right. So I don't believe America should never, ever, ever at all ever send any money to Israel. I believe we should stop sending money right now and then put conditions on us ever sending the money again. And that will de-radicalize the Israelis because they'll start, actually seeing the consequences of the oppression that the state has done.
But that blank check, I don't understand, like whether you know or don't know. Do you understand Israel's economy and how they make their money? Do you think that that blank check would be some sort of impact on what's going on down there?
That Israel has a 26%, that Israel's GDP is made up of a fourth of US exports and imports.
Yeah, and
That bit.
their biggest trade partner is Europe and currently growing its China.
Their number one trade partner of any given country is the United States of America.
That's not true. You can pull that up.
GDP of Israel divided by country. Economy. Okie dokie. Main export partners. 26% of the export partners are United States, and 25% is the whole entire European Union combined. So,
And China's in there, and all these other countries are in there.
and so the
And
United States makes up 26% of their exports. The EU makes up 25% of their exports. China makes up 7% of their exports. So if the United States and our allies, which we can politically and diplomatically push to follow our economic goals, which we do, they would lose immediately literally half their export partners. They would lose half of their economy. So
if what happens? If repeat that one more
if the
time.
US and its allies, right, engaged in non-free trade, right, if we pulled away the free trade agreement that the US and the European Union jointly have with Israel, which Ireland has actually called for them to do, um, Israel would immediately lose half of its export economy.
That's if, right? So wishful thinking, and also you gotta
No, but
convince.
you said I don't know. You don't know if you understand the blank check. Oh, they have other exporters. They have other things. Yeah, barely, right? Half of their economy is dependent on America and its allies.
And
Half of it.
all of this compromises of privatized companies and not just governments deciding what gets sent to what?
Comprises. Also,
Comprises.
yeah, we can put we have a free trade agreement with them, right? We can control what goes like what we trade with Israel. Like we can put an embargo on Israel
I
from
get
America.
that, right?
We
But
can
it's
put
not.
sanctions on Israel. We actually do put sanctions on like a bunch of countries right now. Once again,
Right.
the thing is like Israel is dependent on America. We know Israel is dependent on America, right? Um, you're just saying they're probably not. America's probably not going to stop to probably not going to use that dependence in any way. Cool, but you need to separate whether you think we should we use that, right, or can we use it? And you seem to argue you're like they don't really have a blank check. Yeah, they fucking do. They have one of the most beneficial non-NATO member state free trade agreements in the world with America, right? That's a multi-billion-dollar fact in and of itself.
See, I don't totally believe that for a minute because the reality is that we don't see the numbers going back and forth. I don't believe that the United States does not benefit off of Israel in any way, so that doesn't make it a blank check at the end of the day. There's money going back and forth. They're not just getting handed freebies left, right, and center. And then
No, I think it's a beneficial relationship between the two. I never claimed it wasn't. So
okay, so
it's just the fact that the U.S., like Israel, is dependent entirely on the U.S. It just is.
So, with
So,
that said, and that acknowledged between the both of us, let's put that on the record that we both agree that there's a beneficial, um,
do you recognize
relationship.
that Israel is entirely dependent on the U.S. and its allies?
No, I do not recognize that.
Oh,
If you
okay. If we're going to
yeah.
start taking on a record like facts, okay, argue to me why Israel is not dependent. Why, if America has the ability to cut out 50% of Israel's economy, they are not dependent on us.
Because as soon as you cut off that economy, hypothetically, let's stop funding completely. Israel's just going to reroute their trading with all the other countries. You think they're just going to sit idly by and allow that to happen? I don't understand what kind of world we live in where it's, yes, we've stopped funding from the United States. Now they're absolutely screwed. They have no more avenues to work by. They're not going to trade with any other countries. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like you're living this like imaginary world where as soon as the United States stop funding, there's nothing else that they can do. It makes no sense. Do you think any other country would do that? They just sit by and let 25% of their trading go away?
I mean, so what would happen is they would have an immediate recession. That's really obvious. And then they would reroute some trading. No shit. But they're clearly still dependent on us because even they themselves say they can't trade with most of the world. One of their only trade partners they would have left, right? Okay, let's go down this list. So, main export partners: United States, European Union, China, right? China makes up 7% of their current economy, right? The next, all of them, except for Turkey, are American allies, right? So the United States, European Union, and then Palestinian territories, which they aren't going to increase their trade to. India, which we have a mutual defense treaty with and are direct and very close allies with India. United Kingdom, cucked by us, right? Taiwan, Hong Kong, Brazil. The best arguments you would have were the BRICS countries, right? But BRICS isn't going to get closer with Israel because there's a major issue with that. Iran, right? So they'll have China, maybe a half of India, right? Turkey properly, and maybe a little bit of Brazil left. But the fact that Hong Kong makes up 2% of their current economy, like, yeah, their whole entire economy is oriented towards supplying the West and American allies with goods. It's obvious. And they can't transition to trading with anyone, right? The Middle East won't trade with them. BRICS nations won't trade with them, right? It's just not going to happen. They're certainly not going to become independent upon Israel, right? And then you don't think that China, if they have increased diplomatic control, they aren't going to use that to pressure Israel to do the exact same thing, right? Or BRIC countries like Brazil, which are aligned with Iran right now, aren't going to use the exact same arguments. I, don't- I like yeah. Even if they do reroute, the exact same thing is going to be pressured upon them by the BRICS countries.
I don't believe that China would do anything. I think China's not in a
China said
position.
it would.
China says a lot of things, and China, look at what they're doing in their own country. They only say it to keep good face. You know how China operates.
Good face with who?
With the world, they are what are they? What they're dealing with the Uyghurs, and they're trying to hide that from the world the whole time
Why would China like Israel?
because China is trading with Israel. China has a Silk Road that they're
They can
trying to.
trade with Palestinians. They don't give a shit.
They can trade with Palestinians with what? In what capacity would they trade if Israel
No, but
stays?
the thing is, they have no reason to support Israel as like the ethno state that it is. America has reasons to support Israel as the state that it is, right? China does not support Israel's rights, and like
But
Israel recognizes
trade with.
Taiwan, right? Israel recognizes claims Hong Kong. Like Israel is a Western aligned country, and they have like made themselves a pariah from the East quite clearly, and they are a pariah from the East. These numbers show it like stupidly clear,
But what
right?
does it
So
tell you? What does it tell you about China when you say they have no reason to support Israel, yet they're constantly 7% is not a small number to trade with Israel. What does that tell you about that country? They don't care at all
you think
about any.
7% is not a small number, but you somehow think that they could entirely come back from a 50% drop. Okay. Um, yeah,
What
so
did
why
I
do they
say
trade
that a
with Israel?
7%?
China's the largest trade partner in the world of like most people. Like look at the US, right? USA GDP by country. It's probably pretty similar, TBH. Um, where is it? US GDP, USA, US GDP. Let me see if I can get this. Economy of the US. Okay. Export partners. Yeah, China, 7%. So this tracks on exactly, right, in America. America and China are like the opposite poles of the world, right? And yet they still constitute 7% of our economy. Like, yeah. So I don't think your point holds. China, obviously, if they had increased economic leverage over America, would use that economic leverage to change our policies, right? But 7% right enough isn't. And it's very obvious that China actively and consistently does disagree with American policies, American hegemony, actively work against um, American interests foreignly. So if Israel pivoted more towards BRICS facing countries, they would use that pressure exactly. And I'm 100% Iran. I'm 100% sure that Iran would use that pivot to pressure Israel to change its policies as well.
Yeah, but that's if Israel joins BRICS. Why would Israel join BRICS? For what reason would they have to do that?
I never said they would join BRICS. I would say they pivot towards BRICS countries, which is the only thing they would have left.
What do you mean by pivot? What is that? Like, I don't understand.
Pivot their economy, which is what you
And
suggested.
yes, they would pivot their economy hypothetically
To
if
trade
the
with
EU,
who?
sorry,
Yeah, to trade with who?
to trade with the EU.
The EU, which is America's largest ally and directly follows most of our economic policies foreignly.
And this is we're talking about hypothetically if both the United States and the
But
EU
like
stop
the
trading.
thing is like if the U.S. actually used its diplomatic ties, obviously the EU would follow. Are you kidding me?
See, I don't think that the EU would necessarily follow. There's a lot of times the EU has not followed what the United States had to say.
If we were at the point that America, if we were at the point that America was sanctioning Israel, like let's live in that reality for a second. You don't think that America would use its diplomatic pressure, like hear me out, for example, control of like all of the natural gas in Europe right now with the LPCs. You don't think they would use that diplomatic pressure as well to pressure Israel to follow? Like,
They would do it. They would do it. Will it work on a country like Italy? Would it work on a country like Czechoslovakia? Would it work on a country
yes.
like, would it? You think it would?
You think Italy wouldn't stop Italy GDP? Okay.
I think Italy
Economy of
has.
Israel of Italy. Um, Israel isn't even in the top five. It's not listed as the main export partner within Italy's economy. It's not listed anywhere.
That's not my point,
Um,
though. My point is that
Israel
Italy is part of
trade
the
with,
EU, is it not?
yeah, but they would have no reason to even give a shit about trading with Italy. So
Yes, they would
yeah,
because they have their own ideology in Italy. They have their own political
yeah,
party,
but they're also
and it's in
dependent on
support of
America.
Israel.
First of all, not really. I mean, Europe is less supportive of Israel than America is, right?
Then
And actually, Europe
not
has
sure.
stronger economic reasons to be aligned with BRICS countries because of their reliance on because of their reliance on Iran for oil and natural gas. So
Tell me,
no, I actually do.
from a political standpoint, not the people on the ground in the country protesting, is
No,
Great
I'm talking
Britain
from a political standpoint. Europe is more anti-Israel than America is.
is Great Britain anti-Israel?
They're more so than America is.
Is Italy anti-Israel? Have you heard any
More
of
so
these
than
countries?
America is.
Right. See, I disagree with you because every one of these
I have
countries
the
is.
data. I mean,
That's why I came up here to
this
disagree
is
with
just
you,
a
did I not?
factual difference. No, yeah,
It's
but
not fact.
this is just like a factual material difference.
I don't think you're
Of
stating
Israel.
anything that actually has any, like, it doesn't hold. I don't understand how you think.
I think I'm the only one that's actually pulled out like genuine facts going on here. I don't know.
No, that's not true. That's not true. And
I mean,
also, you're
you said that what? Oh, what did you say about the U.S.? You said they could pivot to who, right? If we drop out the U.S. and the EU, you haven't really answered that question. Are you saying, okay, if the U.S. and the EU were in lockstep with foreign policy, which they would be, and let's all be real, who would they trade with? Like who would Israel trade with? No one. They would trade with BRICS countries, and they get cucked.
okay. Sure. If you're going to tell me that you're going to cut off one half of the trading partners, then go ahead. And they'll trade with China and the rest of their trading partners. I don't understand what that point is,
Who?
though.
Name them.
They'll trade with China. They'll trade with Jordan. They'll trade with.
Jordan, no, Jordan is economically and militarily dependent on the U.S. and a direct U.S. ally. Cut out direct U.S. allies.
So
If the U.S. became anti-Israel, if the U.S.
whatever's
wanted to
left
use its
over,
diplomatic power to make Israel pariah state, who would they trade with?
whatever's left over. I don't know these
Who?
countries.
Name them. Name them.
Why do I have to name them for you?
Because you're saying that they could pivot successfully. I'm saying they have basically no countries left to pivot towards.
I said that in regards to the United States, and then you included both the
Oh,
EU
okay.
and the
So
United States.
do you think if the U.S. and all, which my original claim was the U.S. and its allies, the U.S. and its allies, right, and the U.S. through its allies put severe economic pressure by cutting down on the free trade agreements, put sanctions, etc. Do you think that Israel would be severely economically affected? Do you think they would hurt quite a lot economically?
If done successfully, and if you mitigate the fact that Israel is going to fight to make sure that they can continue to trade, right? Let's say that you
Fight,
also,
fight in what way? What do you mean by that?
well, they're not going to bring advisors to these countries. They're not going to start to negotiate. Like we're talking that we're going to silence Israel completely, take away
Oh no,
any
that's not
ability.
necessary. Israel can come and try and stop it. But I
Okay,
still think even if you say, oh, Israel is unsuccessful, obviously Israel wouldn't want America to stop doing it, and America could put some
okay.
requests and
Well,
conditions on
my whole
their
reason
economic
for
support,
coming up
right?
here in the first place is to state that what we're talking about here is hypotheticals. It's not an actual solution, right?
It
Like,
is an actual
yes,
solution.
sure, if I were in your
This is what
shoes,
stopped apartheid South Africa, arguably.
yeah, but if I were in your shoes, I'd also be saying, let's completely stop funding from the United States and Europe because that seems to be your only logical idea for how to end this conflict. But, like, it
I
just
don't see.
doesn't.
I don't. My argument is literally we should use every diplomatic, economic, and military lever that we have to pressure Israel into stop being an aggressive nation, right? And for them to stop being criminal, right?
But
Obviously, us using every diplomatic, political, and economic lever that we have would do something, right, Damza? Like you keep like understating it as if like we have anything other than all of our levers.
it
I'm saying
would
we
do
should use
something.
our whole entire foreign policy to do this.
It would definitely do something, but I think it'll just increase tensions in the area. I don't think it would actually solve
Okay, then
anything.
why you point? Okay, that's an interesting conversation. That's much more interesting than hemming and hawing over. Well, this is hypothetical. Well, it doesn't matter. Blah blah blah. Obviously, political pressure matters, right? We can agree on that. Then we can go into okay. Well, if we are going to use our political pressure, should we use it this way? You don't think we should because it was increased tensions. I disagree. I think America. I think Israel. Not being an actively aggressive. If we said, "Hey, Israel, you got to accept the right of return," right? You can't be criminal. I mean, Jordanians would like it. The tension between Israelis and Jordanians would decrease massively if Israel recognized the right of return. Um, The Egyptians would like it. Saudi Arabians would like it. Actually, if Israel just did like a laundry list of like one or two things, right? Saudi Arabia would probably become a pretty close military ally of Israel.
Are
So
are those countries actively engaged in conflict with Israel? I'm not quite
I'm
following you.
talking about tension. Saudi Arabia does not recognize Israel's right to exist.
What about the groups in Syria?
What about them? Like, I don't think
What
it's
would
gonna.
they
I
do?
don't. But they are. Do you think they're gonna get? My point is like
What are they going to do to the Golan Heights as soon as you're suggesting that it's just
just go
Jordan
back to
that's
Syria, bro. But um, okay, your argument is that the militant groups are going to become like angrier, more powerful. I disagree. Um, First of all, yeah, I think there's a time where Israel becomes like a Saudi puppet state in some way. They just go on the side of Saudi Arabia. But still, that means they have to fulfill such and such demands. I don't actually think it threatens the foreign policy that much to say, hey, America, if America pulls a lot of the funding, or actually, like, my point is not even that. My point is that America should pull the funding so that we can use that funding so as to force Israel to not be a criminal nation, right? And whatever ends up still being there, if it's one state, if it's two states, whatever, should still be protected from terrorist groups, right? But those terrorist groups have a lot less reason to exist if Israel does blank, blank, and blank, right? If they do, they recognize the right of return, if they stop being an ethno state, if they stop occupying Palestine.
right, but they own the okay, so now we're getting into the one state, two state solution conversation. I just want to back
Not really.
right because you're suggesting that everything goes back to Palestine and we make a one state solution just to Palestine. Yes?
Well, my whole entire point is that we should hold our funding on contingency for them recognizing whatever is just there, right? Like, obviously that would work, but okay. You
So
agree that, like, okay, you don't think Israel's acting in good faith right now, right? You think they're like, do you think Israel's like, I don't know. Do you agree with the concept of greater Israel? Do you think they have the right to like the Sinai?
not well, the Sinai Peninsula, not so much. I wouldn't say that. I think the my
Okay, so them claiming it is obviously like overly aggressive and unjust, causing further tensions in the
my
area, right?
belief my belief is that if we're going to be talking about the right of the people to live there, and we're going to go into historics like both groups do, we have to consider the times of ancient Israel and when people lived there at the time and the groups that were there.
No, I know you want to. I know you want to transition to another conversation,
And no, I really
but
do
I'd like
because
to.
that's another
I'd like to
conversation I'm
stay
very
on. I'd like
interested
to
in
stay on
having.
this for a second. Same, but we can have that after a second because your opening thing is much more a rhetorical point. You're just saying what you're doing is useless. Like, okay, uh, it's just a
Which it
weird thing.
is. It is useless
Okay,
because
then what you're doing is useless.
definitely, yeah, what I'm doing is definitely useless.
Okay,
So
I don't speak to people who don't have any purpose in saying things. Anyway, ooh, I forgot that this was going on. Ooh, interesting, intriguing. Hmm, love. Oh, anyway, loves. Okay. Mm. Anyway, I'm going to go because I have to, and it's on YouTube. I have a fundraiser in my link. Please go do that. Um, thank you for the people wishing me a happy birthday. Much love and slay the day. Yeah, slay. All right. Bye, Queens.